Hi, hope everyone's having a good week. I want to review a little bit of grammar with you. I want to go over the first three words or the first three phrases that we see in Exodus 6:3. Some of you are struggling with grammatical analysis. That's to be expected after just one semester of Hebrew. But I want to go over my sheet with you, but do it in a video form so you can see how I'm working through this. Again, to do grammatical analysis, you have to have the parsing. If you're just staring at the Hebrew text or even staring at an English text, it's not going to magically appear. If your skills aren't good enough to sight read and know the parsing from memory, and frankly, if you're struggling with that, it's completely understandable. You've only had one semester. But you need to find a tool that will give you access, and there's several tools. You can get an analytical lexicon. If you go online, Owens has an excellent one. It's a little pricey, but you can check that out. It's still cheaper than Bible software. You can also get an older copy. This would be a reprint from a 19th century work by Benjamin Davidson. And Owen's work and Davidson's work go word by word through the entire Hebrew Bible and give you the parsing. So that's an excellent tool, and that allows you to then to take your Hebrew Bible, and you're just not trying to guess what the words are. You can get the parsing in just a very basic translation. That'll help you. And then you can look at Arnold Choi. Again, you can also use Logos, Bible Works, or Accordance. If you're close to a campus, you can access those for free. They're expensive, so again, I'm not requiring you to buy those. There's also free online parsing sites that will give you the parsing for each word in the Hebrew. So make sure you get the parsing. Now, once you get the parsing, you can go to town on this. So let's look, if you have your Bible, let's start with the first word in verse 6:3. And that first word is pronounced Va'era, and as you see, I've already parsed this. This is a past narrative. That's what Cook Homestead call it. If you used an older Hebrew grammar, this would be the Vav consecutive imperfect, or Arnold Choi also calls this the imperfect with Vav consecutive. Sorry for the confusion again with that. So we'll use Cook's language. We have a past narrative. It's Binyan, or Binyamim is a nifal. We also call that the stem. It's first common singular, and it's from the word ra'ah. Ra'ah means to see, you may remember from OT 501. Okay, now when we look at some English translations, this ends up being translated I appeared, or I showed myself. And so to make sense of this, we want to look up the two pieces of the verb. We need to look at the verb type. That's the past narrative, and the stem, the nifal. Let's start with the more straightforward one, which would be what's the function of this past narrative. To find that, we look up in Arnold Choi, we look at 3.5.1, where he goes over these the different functions here. And if you look at the categories, to analyze the past narrative or the Vav consecutive, what you're asking yourself is, how does the clause with the Vav consecutive, with the past narrative, how does it relate to the clause immediately in front of it? And in this case, this comes in the flow of a narrative, and so this is simply the sequential use of it. The Lord appeared in directly sequenced after the phrase that comes in directly in front of it. So that's sequential. Now let's look at the nifal. And this is a little tricky. We haven't run in. We mostly looked at calls so far in our grammar work thus far. And the nifal, it has some basic meaning. So find nifal in Arnold Choi, and this is going to be 3.1.2. Okay, and you look at the basic options. The nifal can indicate a passive voice, whereas call is active. Nifal can be passive, or it can be middle or reflexive. Let's talk about those ideas. Here it looks like it's a reflexive, because in a sense, reflexive is the subject actually kind of receiving and participating in the action. So if you think about it, if active would be I saw, that would be the call of C. Middle reflexive would be I appeared. Passive would be I was seen. I appeared, or I showed myself. That's a reflexive idea. So the best way to identify this one would be to see this as a reflexive. Literally, I showed myself here. All right, let's look at the next piece. We have a prepositional phrase that shows up here in Exodus 6:3. And if you're following along in Hebrew, this preposition, it's the preposition el, it repeats 3 times. In each case, it has a different object. So we have el Avraham, El Yitzchak, and Ve'el Yaakov. So this is to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob. So to analyze the prepositional phrase, and you can assume here in this case, since it's the same one 3 times in a row, you're going to have essentially identical usage. So we have 3 different prepositional phrases all repeating the same preposition with simply a different object. And what this would be, if you look up the preposition, you want to look up the preposition L. Those are in section 4 of Arnold Choi, and you can find the preposition L in 4.1.2. And if you go through the categories, the one that seems to make the most sense would be perceptual. In other words, the L in each case, I showed myself to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. This is marking the object. Answers the question, who did God show, to who did God reveal himself? Of a verb of perception, and that's exactly what C is. It's actually talking about, that's a verb of perception. This would be the perceptual use of L. And then let's just do one more. This one's a little bit harder. This is a little bit more abstract. After that prepositional phrase, we get the phrase Be'el Shaddai. And this ends up functioning as one of God's names, Shaddai, El Shaddai, and it's the object of this preposition bait. And to do this prepositional phrase, we do the same thing. We go to section 4 of Arnold Choi, and again, all those prepositions are in there in alphabetical order, and we look up the bait, and I will be there in just a second. It's 4.1.5, and we work through these different ones. And this isn't spatial. This isn't just in or at. This is talking about, I showed myself to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, Beit El Shaddai, sort of as El Shaddai. So what's the nuance? You see that in all those English translations. Well, read through these list of prepositions, options in 4.1.5, and as you come down, the option essence is the textbook example of this. It marks the identity of a noun in the context, occasionally with a predicate and connoting having the same nature as or consisting of. And in fact, here we see Exodus 6:3. This very phrase is an example of the bait of essence. Okay, I'm sure I kind of made this look easy, but I want you to see my thought process to try to help you to do a little bit better job on this. Again, your work should get a little bit better every week. Be patient with yourself, work hard, it will come, it's worth it. Again, we'll talk about this in class. God bless you, thanks for your hard work. Let me know if you have any questions at all or if I could be of any service to you.